The largest bear in the world, and the Arctic's top predator, the polar bear, is a powerful symbol of strength and endurance. The polar bear's Latin name, Ursus maritimus, means sea bear. It's an apt name for these majestic species, for it spends much of its life in, around, or on the ocean, predominantly on the sea of ice. Polar bears rely heavily on this sea ice for traveling, hunting, resting, mating, and in some areas, maternal dens. But because of ongoing and potential loss of their sea ice habitat resulting from climate change, polar bears were listed as a threatened species in the U.S. under the Endangered Species Act in May 2008. As their sea ice habitat recedes earlier in the spring and forms later in the fall, polar bears are increasingly spending longer periods on land, where they're often attracted to areas where humans live. Sentry Island is one of several Canadian Arctic islands in Nunavut, Canada, within western Hudson Bay. The closest community is 𝗕𝗏𝗏, 13.7 kilometers or 8.5 miles to the west. The island forms part of the 𝗕𝗏𝗏 and the 𝗕𝗃𝗂𝗱 National Historic Site and a 𝗕𝗏𝗏 Inuit summer campsite. Sentry Island is a popular place for fishing and hunting. The island is open with no trees to climb or any place to hide, so it's every man for himself when a bear decides to attack. It is, however, rare for bears to attack, as the community is known to watch the bears migrate and have never interacted with them. This bear attack would be the first since 2000. Aaron Gibbons was a 31-year-old father of 4, who was a great man in his community. He was well known as a skilled hunter who always provided meat for his clan, and his calm demeanor caused him to almost never lose his temper. But what would happen to Aaron would shake the entire village to their core. It was a warm day of 4th of July when Aaron loaded his boat with 4 kids inside and a .22 rifle to head off to Sentry Island to collect bird eggs. He thought it would be a fun activity for his family, and on any other day, he probably would have been right. But this 4th of July was no ordinary day. The kids were excited, watching their father load the boat up, and they all settled down when he joined them in it, as they veered off for their 10-mile journey to the island. They hadn't been there a large number of times, but still, they marveled at the sheer openness of the place. It was a beautiful sight to see. Aaron wasn't marveling at the sight, though. He was taking note of the open space around, clutching harder to his rifle. Because, unlike his children, he knew what dangers could spring out at any time. The boat came to a halt, and he steadied it on the rocky shores. 2 of his children jumped out of the boat, running off to play in the open space with the sun in their faces. A burst of summer energy coursing through their veins, and not a single care in the world around them. Aaron chuckled. He yelled for them to get back, and he instructed them on what to do about collecting the eggs and how to avoid the birds themselves before he let the kids loose again. It was going to be very easy because they had all the information that they needed about where to find their bird eggs. Assured of that fact, Aaron began to relax as the kids ran around collecting the eggs, having the time of their lives. He chose that moment to reflect on his life up until that moment and how wholesome and comforting it had been. But he quickly snapped out of it and back to reality when he saw something moving in the distance. At first, he wouldn't have given it a second glance, but the white mass seemed to be moving towards his daughter, who was completely oblivious of what was happening around her while she gathered eggs. He slowly moved towards his kids as he noticed the polar bear approaching. He was a little confused, as he knew polar bears, just like regular brown bears, hibernate during this period. Just their cousins, the brown bears. These polar bears simply lay around in anticipation of cooler temperatures. But what Aaron didn't know was that only the starving ones, desperate for a wandering meal, didn't join in on this tradition. He watched the polar bear's demeanor, the creature stalking slowly with its head down and ears falling back, as it was calculating the best way to sneak up on the children as they darted from one nest to another, still in search of bird eggs. Once it was certain that his calculations were accurate, it gradually closed the distance that was left between itself and the children. Aaron was very much aware of what was happening and most likely the outcome. So he thought of a plan and immediately screamed for his kids. It got their attention as they noticed the bear stalking them. The kids were frightened by this, but their father reassured them that everything would be okay. He instructed them to get back to the boat. And the children complied, running towards the boat without a second thought. Aaron thought to follow them, but he knew he couldn't. The bear would follow them to the boat. But he needed something. His rifle. Without his weapon of choice, Aaron now had to make do with whatever was around. He picked rocks and a bat. As the children began to get closer to the boat, the bear hastened its steps as it started closing the distance between itself and the children. Aaron quickly stopped this. He threw rocks at the bear and screamed and shouted as loud as he could, causing the bear to be stunned for moments as the rocks Aaron threw fell to its sides. Aaron's intention was to scare the bear, but hungry polar bears are not easily deterred from their prey. Who would give up a needed opportunity for a meal when you're starving? And the bear wasn't scared anyways. Instead, it slowly turned its attention towards Aaron, declaring a new interest now. Very much aware from his experience that this was not something to joke about, Aaron, who knew that the bear's intention was to have him for dinner, stared in horror as the bear began to move towards him. He knew now that the situation he was in was life-threatening. He ordered his oldest daughter to call for help on the radio, which she did without question, and they waited in horror while watching as the bear began to charge at Aaron. The girls screamed for their father, but Aaron knew what he had to do. He knew what had to be done. So he didn't move from the path. He knew if he got out of the way, the bear would come for his children, and that, well, he wouldn't allow that. Then there was the idea of running to the boat as fast as possible and launching it fast enough to leave the island and keep himself and his kids safe. But who was he kidding? What made him think that he could outrun a hungry polar bear? In the space of a few yards, the polar bear caught up and ran him to the ground, tackling him. The children, screaming in fear, watched as their father got mauled by the bear. During the chaos, the radio signal the daughter had sent through was successful. Help was going to come. At the other end of the line, the children could hear someone calling out to them, and they quickly responded. The bear continued attacking Aaron, throwing him up and down by the neck with his body hitting the rocks until he went limp. A rescue team made their way into the spot where the boat resided, ready to rescue the children. Although the kids were saved, their father would remain dead, but would forever be honored as a man who died protecting the lives of his children. Aaron was truly an honorable man both in life and in death. But his death is a lesson to all of us to not mistake the polar bear's fluffy coat as cute or cuddly. Underneath all that fur is still a deadly beast that can strike at any time.